In troubling times, it's comforting to turn our thoughts towards spring. Hi, I'm Lori Johns. It's not just gardeners like me and backyard barbecuers who look forward to the fresh start of spring. Farmers spent the winter planning the best ways to grow crops to feed their pigs. Reducing their carbon footprint is central to that because it improves their land, water, and air quality for future generations, and it saves money. As it turns out, the best fertilizer for the environment is at their feet. Well, more to the point, it's in their pig barns. Good old Iowa pig manure supplies less than a quarter of the fertilizer needed for farmers to grow our crops. Manure is organic and made by pigs. Compare that to another alternative fertilizer, anhydrous ammonia, which is petroleum-based. It seems like with all the turmoil going on in the world right now, it's just plain smart to embrace ways to reduce our need for petroleum, you know? Maybe this will ease your mind when it comes to the green of applying manure. It is highly regulated, a lot more than when I was a kid growing up on an Iowa pig farm. In fact, the latest U.S. EPA studies show all livestock farming makes up 10% of our nation's greenhouse gas emissions. And of that 10% slice, pig farming contributes 4%. Yep, driving our cars and keeping our homes warm contribute far more greenhouse gas than livestock. So let's talk to people who work with Iowa pig farmers every day to find out how they support them as they care for the land, water, and air that we all share. Smart people like Brett Kaysen.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So first and foremost, I am the Senior Vice President for Producer and State Engagement, as well as lead up our sustainability efforts at the National Pork Board on behalf of the 60,000 pig farmers that we serve. And I will tell you, what's fun about what you just opened with is every day is Earth Day on the farm. And so that being said, our farmers are committed to continuous improvement, and it's in their DNA and in their blood. And I talk about who are the original environmental stewards of the land. It's always been farmers. And they take a holistic view of, how do I protect the soil, right? And soil quality, water quality, air. How can I become a good neighbor? They're seeking information to figure out how they could be better stewards from an environmental perspective.
And it makes sense that taking care of the land is taking care of them and taking care of their families. And whether they have been in it for 150 years or they're just starting out, it's their first year. I can certainly understand why that's important, and you see that all the time. What are the many ways and the many successful programs that you see them really enthusiastically embracing?
Yeah, one of the things I'd start with is the ability to manage manure appropriately. And so we talk about fertilizer and nutrients relative to soil health and growing crops, and actually growing the protein called pork that consumers love and enjoy. And you hear a lot of talk about organic. The original fertilizer that's organic is actually manure. And so these farmers using digital technology, global positioning systems, variable rate precision technology in which they apply the right nutrient at the right time at the right rate is phenomenal. And so that's one step that I'm excited about on how they continue to manage their nutrients out of their pig farms.
I dare say, as someone who is a master gardener and also grew up on a century hog farm, I think that the pig farmers today are even more precise than some of my fellow gardeners, perhaps.
Absolutely. They have more tools, right? Innovation and technology. And your listeners, there'd be time I'd love to put them in the tractor cab when this takes place. And you get in these tractor cabs now, and it looks like you're in a Boeing 747 airplane because of all the digital displays and the technology at their fingertips. And they're looking to also upgrade their equipment constantly in this space. But they know that managing that manure, putting that in the right place in the land, actually increases soil health and organic matter in the soil. When we do that, then that actually improves water quality as well, because that water stays in the soil profile as opposed to running off into our natural water bodies. So that's just one thing of many in which farmers are deploying each and every day.
And the soil testing is so precise. They know exactly what's going on.
Absolutely. They create these grid systems in their soil types, and they continuously test and learn, send that into a diagnostic lab that gives them a third-party validation of what their nutrient content is. And I love talking to these farmers because they're like, okay, in this 2.5 acres, we're going to change the rate this year. And then when I get out of that 2.5 acres and I go to this 80, I'm going to change the rate. And so thinking about it as an acre by acre system in which we apply the nutrients to get the best productions and yield from the row crop, but also then protect the environment, is a phenomenal process. And the technology and the visual imagery that we have continues to get better. Typical farmers, they adopt the technology and they continuously improve.
And manure is a sensitive topic, no matter where you live, not just in Iowa, I suppose nationwide, but here in Iowa, because we have so many pigs. People have questions about
manure and the safe storage of it.
Absolutely. And what I can tell you is that these modern day barns were designed to capture that wonderful resource, not a waste source, resource, put it in the right place at the right time underneath the building, and then use the right technology to get it into the soil types to reduce odor as well and to be a good neighbor. And so, yes, folks may have some concerns, but think about on the other side. If we're not using manure and natural nutrients, then we're then using commercial fertilizer. And not to disparage commercial fertilizer, but there's a heavy fossil fuel base to commercial fertilizer. And so remember, you're using organic nutrients that have already flown through a pig, and it's also helping the farmer in terms of their bottom line. And to be honest with you, farmers I work with and folks that I work with in the row crop business in Iowa say we need more pig manure. We need more of those nutrients because we're having to use commercial fertilizers. We wish we had more natural organic nutrients.
It's certainly more green, and it's more precise in how they measure it, but also how they apply it has changed over the years.
Absolutely. The tools not only in the tractor cab that I talked about, but then the implement behind the tractor and its ability to sense what's going on in the soil and then change those application rates as it's getting that real-time sensing from the soil and its needs. And you're right, it is green. And think about, we hear a lot in today's talk about sustainability. And let's think about, it's the ultimate sustainability cycle. We have this wonderful soil here in Iowa. We apply pig manure nutrients to that soil. It grows row crop corn and soybeans. That is the major components of a swine diet. So we feed that back to the pig. The pig then produces wonderful pork protein, but also this valuable resource called manure, and we put that manure back into the soil. So it's this holistic systems approach to sustainability that we've been doing for generations. To your point, we just have even more technology and innovation and tools to be as precise as we've ever been in application.
There's always a change and there's always innovation and research going on, even now as we speak, no doubt. But when it comes to odors, reducing odors from pig barns and reducing odors from the manure itself, any idea what's going on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Some folks that I've been working with from ProStar Energy, and I'll keep it basic for all of us to understand, but it's really interesting is they're moving this manure through a technology that actually uses electric voltage to change the composition of the nitrogen, which thus changes the composition of the odor. And that technology is in place today in farms in this country, and it's been utilized in the Netherlands as well. So when you start thinking about actually changing the chemical makeup of pig manure so that it makes it more friendly to your neighbors, but still a good nutrient for the soil, that's the point where we're at in technology and where we're headed.
That's really incredible.
It's cool. We call it lightning in a box. You put pig manure through a box, you use lightning to electrocute it, and you change the composition of the odor. People are always looking for what's new, what's next. And again, I've said this before, but I want to reiterate, pig farmers are committed, and farmers in general are committed to continuous improvement. Because they have to be. They cannot survive in a tight margin business, as is animal agriculture and row crop agriculture, without change, dynamic tools, and also thinking about what's next and what's our next step from a business perspective. And how can I outmaneuver my competitor to put myself and my family in a position to pass my farm to the next generation? The other thing I'd like to share with you is recently we did a study through the National Pork Board on the life cycle assessment of pigs. And really, it's measuring your success and progress over time on environmental metrics. And since 1960, when you use per pound of pork as your denominator, pig farmers have reduced their land footprint by 70+%. They've reduced their energy use per pound of pork by 7% and reduced the carbon footprint by 7%. So you think about, we're producing more food than we ever have, using less resources, makes for a really healthy, sustainable product that's environmentally friendly.
Now that is food for thought.
Farming has changed so much, and this next generation of farmers embraces the newest technology and innovation. They may have been born into farming, but many, like Matt Ditch, went away to college first and worked in other careers. And when they came back, they brought a whole new perspective and next-generation science to the family farm. Technology like Farm Management Information System, or FMIS, which helps the Linn County farmer know exactly what's going on in his pig barns.
Yep. A lot of the environmental decisions we have made have been based on good, sound, scientific practices. They've been, like the mist system we're using in the barn has been studied and peer-reviewed and published through Iowa State and Purdue, the findings they've had. So it's not just arbitrary company A going out here and testing it and saying, this is what we're finding. They're hard scientific facts that have been through a peer-reviewed journal and published in a science-based publishing area. And so we got hard data that gives us good information that we can make decisions on. And so that's why I said it's kind of cool to see. I feel like a lot more of that stuff's coming into ag, that we as farmers now have the availability to make decisions on really good data instead of, oh, hey, this company's telling me it's going to do this. And that's just that company's research. It's not independent third-party peer-reviewed stuff.
Well, does this stuff ever, and I don't know if your grandpa farmed, especially if he raised pigs, but I would gotta think that'd be blowing him away.
Yep. So my grandfather that started this farm passed away, but I still remember to this day when we built the barn and him and grandma came and just to kind of see what was going on. We took him on a tour of the inside, and to tell him how many pigs would be in one pen, he was like, well, that's what I raised on my whole farm, and that it was kind of cool because, he came from such an old school, 1950s, 60s farming, that it was kind of neat to introduce him to kind of how we do it now and how we're able to control the environments better and make it better for the animals and keep them in more comfortable temperature and all those things. And so, yeah, it was just kind of neat to do that for him.
And the environment. I mean, look at the difference it makes for the environment as well. And that's a good lesson that people need to hear. And they need to see this kind of thing. They need to know about it.
Yeah. And I think, us as farmers, we're not boastful people, so it's hard for us unless we're in kind of a setting which we're allowed to, and it doesn't sound like bragging, come out and say, hey, yeah, this is what we're doing, because we don't want to sound like, oh, look at us. And a lot of farmers just, they do their thing and what they know is right by the information they have, and we don't need to go tell the world about it, but sometimes we do need to tell everybody what's going on and how and why we're doing things the way we are, and kind of educate people a little bit, just like we get educated on what somebody else does for their job in town, and yeah, it's kind of a balance that we need to be a little more maybe boastful about.
How's it feel now to get this award for the environment?
It's cool. I mean, if I didn't get it, it wouldn't have changed how I felt about it. I knew that the things we did were best for this area, for our animals, for our family. Yeah, it's kind of nice to put in all that work and all that time and sacrifice some financial gain to do this kind of thing and get some recognition for it. But in the end, I told someone the other day, I said, if I were able, being a young guy, I'm looking for other barns in the area. If I buy, I'm going to do the same stuff to those because it's the right thing to do for those animals, for the people in that area, in that community, and for just me as a producer being inside of it to make a good, healthy environment for everybody.
Of course, there's the sentiment of doing the right thing, but there are also rules, hundreds of pages of rules today's farmers have to follow. They also have to file plans with the state before they put in a new pig barn. Helping farmers navigate it all is where regulatory compliance folks like Samantha DeWitt come in.
My name is Samantha DeWitt. I'm with a company called AgVice. So as a consultant, I'm kind of the middleman between the farmer and the DNR, and I kind of compare that as to someone hiring someone to do their taxes for them, where you can do it yourself, but it's just easier to have an expert. Regulations do change from time to time, and there is a lot of information that farmers have to follow, so it's nice to have a consultant, hand in hand with them as they either build a new site in the construction process or the regulatory upkeep. There's paperwork and information that needs to be submitted and documented every year. And so it's just nice to have a consultant handle all of that for a farm. Matt and his family have really gone above and beyond those regulations. Like I said, I work in the regulatory world, and to see somebody that has implemented so many practices on their farm to decrease their environmental impact, it's incredible. Between his solar panels, his mist system in the farm, the cover crops, the no-till, the minimum tillage that he does on his fields to really conserve soil, water, air quality, his beautiful landscaping around the site here. He just exemplifies what, an Iowa pig farmer is, and he's just the role model for the industry.
Well, tell me about some of these practices, because they do go above and beyond, and people might not understand them. I mean, if you drive by, you see a barn, you see a pretty spot with trees, but there's a lot that goes into that, and it makes a measurable impact on the environment.
Right. So his landscaping, for example, you can see the beautiful trees. That not only is a visual barrier, but it's also a barrier for odor, dust control, provides a snow fence in the winter. All of these things that help protect the site, keep it secluded to this one spot, both from an odor and visual standpoint. His solar panels, obviously, to decrease his energy need. The mist system he has in his barn is incredible. I have not been to very many sites where you can walk almost all the way around the site and not smell a thing. And it's one of those things that you don't necessarily realize. And it is a step, it's a big investment. but it's something that they've really put a lot of time and effort and money into to help control their environmental impact.
And do you get involved in the soil testing as well?
Our company does offer some soil testing. We do that. That's part of a requirement of a manure management plan, is that any field receiving manure has to be soil sampled and tested once every 4 years. And that just kind of monitors what the nutrient levels are in the soil. And that goes into the manure management plan, and the fact that if that phosphorus level in the soil is getting a little bit higher, then they won't put on as much manure or maybe skip that farm a few years, that kind of thing. So it is something that's very closely monitored.
It makes it better for the farmer. It's better for the pig. It's also better for the environment.
It is. So the manure that's obviously produced from the animal is collected in a concrete below ground pit. And that's an entirely enclosed structure where it's not being rained on and running off outside as the way open lot production was in the past. And that manure is a valuable tool. It's the most organic form of fertilizer. And it's nice to be able to use that fertilizer and not see it as a waste. And we really do use it and utilize it to the best of its ability to produce the crop that we're wanting to achieve.
So it's a smaller footprint is the whole idea.
Exactly.
Iowans care about the environment, sure, but a recent survey shows Iowans think the most important role of Iowa's farmers is producing safe food. So, how do Iowa farmers keep animals healthy today while raising so many pigs to meet our protein demands? I'm Lori Johns. On the next Chop Talk, we'll tackle that whole issue of antibiotic use and keeping animals healthy on the farm. Don't miss it.